Please stand up and welcome
让我们全场起立，
Amway President Doug DeVos.
用热烈的掌声，有请安利公司总裁德迪维士先生。
Sawadee Krap. Sawadee Krap. Thank you. What an amazing opportunity to be here to represent my family, the Vanandel family, and indeed everyone in the Amway family around the world, to congratulate you, Fu and Jenny, and all the leaders here for the incredible accomplishments that you have achieved over 40 years. What you have done with the values and the beliefs of my father and Jay, and how you have lived them, is such an amazing story. And it's an honor for me to be here to celebrate you and congratulate you. Congratulations. As we gather here tonight and celebrate achievement, celebrate 40 years of achievement, celebrate the achievement of others who've been on the stage, I want to tell you a little story. It was over 21 years ago that my father had a heart transplant. He was one of the oldest people to receive a heart transplant. And during the procedure of his surgery, he had a difficult time. And some of the medications that he would have to take would give him very vivid dreams. And when he was finished with his story and was coming back home, he began to tell us about one of those dreams. He said he was at a meeting, maybe like this, probably not this big, not this fancy. He said he was on the side of the stage waiting to be introduced, and he had no idea what he was going to talk about. He had a completely blank mind, and he was starting to get nervous as he was walking to the stage. And as he was introduced and walked on the stage, he said it just hit him that it was up to him to talk about achievement and the celebration of achievement. That's what he lived, and that's what we're doing here tonight. We are celebrating 40 years of achievement of this organization and of leaders who have been committed to people in the Amway business since the very beginning. That's what we're celebrating. How's everybody doing on this side, by the way? Everybody okay? Is it good? Yeah. Let me take a moment and articulate why it was so important for me to be here at this event, and why I wanted so badly to be here to be able to be part of this. And that is because the characteristics that Fu and Jenny and all the leaders have demonstrated are so vital that they've demonstrated in their lives and in their business are so vital to helping people achieve their goals in the Amway business. And I wanted to be here to make sure that we all are able to appreciate what has been accomplished here. And I'd like to just pull out a few ideas, a few things that I trust will be helpful for all of you while you're here to think about, because we believe that you have the ability to celebrate your achievements just like everyone else. And that's why you're here. Right? So there's a few elements. The first one I want to talk about is a level of commitment. Anniversary celebrations are important. And this one is important because it represents 40 years of commitment. That doesn't just happen in the world. Accomplishments like this are very rare and are special. When I think of commitment, I'm reminded of stories that I grew up with. And I remember once somebody was talking to my father and talking about the success of the Amway business and saying, wow, you must have had a great vision. You must have been dreaming about all of these achievements and accomplishments that would happen. And I remember my father saying, nope, never could dream that big. Never could have a vision like what we've been blessed with in the Amway business. And then he followed up to say, all Jay did was go to work every day. We didn't do anything out of the ordinary. We just would get up and we'd go to work every day. Every day. Well, maybe they didn't just go to work. They went to work with a commitment that every day they were going to do something to make the business better. They were going to try to add value. They were going to add creativity and innovation. They were going to do something to make the business better. But the key is they did it every day. Right? And that is exactly what the leaders here have done and what has happened in this organization for 40 years. They have gone to work to help people every day. That's why we celebrate. The second kind of point I want to pull out a little bit is the area of focus, of being focused. It was mentioned earlier that Dad and Jay had a very early meeting in Chicago when they were first being involved in the Neutralite business, as they were just getting started and wondering if maybe this business was good for them. And on the ride back, if I follow up on the story that was said earlier, they talked about it and they said, this is it. This is the business we're going to pursue. They had the entrepreneurial spirit. They had tried many different businesses. Their best stories are about the businesses that they tried and where they failed. But as time went on, they knew that they couldn't try to do many different things, that in order to be successful, they were going to have to focus. on the one thing that could take them forward. And they focused, and they put their attention to it. Again, the same characteristic that the leaders of this organization have demonstrated. They do the Amway business. That is what they do. That's why they've been successful, and again, that's why we're celebrating here today, because they have stayed focused and they have not been distracted by something else that might have been easier, by something else that may have been more enticing for the short term. They stayed focused because they knew that they were helping people in the long term. And that too is why we celebrate this anniversary tonight. The third area I want to talk about is the area of persistence. A bit following up on Mark's story about the fact that in 40 years, there have been challenges. In 40 years, they have had difficulties to work through, just like we've had in the Amway business around the world. One of the greatest challenges we faced, and many of you will recall very well, was the regulatory environment in China shortly after the Amway business started. There were lots of questions about whether Amway would be allowed to continue to operate in that marketplace. There were many things going on in the marketplace that were bad. And people that were doing bad things were claiming they were just like Amway, even though they weren't. And there were many questions and many difficulties. And in fact, there was action taken to stop our business operations. But that didn't stop us. That never stopped our belief in Amway. That never stopped our belief in the marketplace. It never stopped the fact that we were going to move forward. We were going to persist. And I remember a particular meeting that was held in the middle of all these difficult times. And while the management was going through the process and describing what was actually happening and what we were going to do, my father stood up in the middle of the meeting and he said, "Thanks for the update. I appreciate the report and the work that everybody's going to do. And I appreciate how difficult the situation may be. But Dad stood up and he said, I want you to know one thing. We will persist. We will not give up. We will move forward." That too could not have been done alone. The leaders here, many of you see, were part of that experience. And they too were thrust into difficult situations at the same time when the company and the whole business was under question. And just like my father's comment, they said, not only with their voice, but with their actions and with their deeds, that they too will persist. And we have done it and gone forward together. It's those characteristics that are so important to be celebrated and to be shared. And that's why I wanted so badly to be here personally, to be able to tell you these things and to let you know how much depth and how much heart is in the 40 years of history that we're celebrating. It's easy at a time like this to go back and say, wow, that must have been 40 great years. It must have been so simple or so easy. And I know it wasn't. I know it had those elements. It had those elements of commitment and focus and persistence. And there were times when that was difficult. And there may have been questions about the next week or the next month or the next year. But yet here we are, 40 years later, right? And now, you know what? No. And as we talked about this a little earlier today with Fu said 40 years, it's a great celebration, but we're just getting started. And I couldn't agree more. We're just getting started. So with the rest of my time here tonight, I want to share a few thoughts with all of you about what this business stands for, and some of the points of history that are important to you and to your future, just like it was to the leaders who are here up front. That this business has a heritage that is proud and that is strong and that is important for your future. And the work that leaders are doing is so that you can achieve success. And that's why we're here. That's why there's volunteers that put this event together. That's why everybody has showed up in this way. So let me tell a few things or talk a little bit about that. The first element I'll share is a story that many people, many leaders here were attending an event when we were together a little over 10 years ago at a Founders Council event. And my father was able to be there and to speak. And as he was sharing a little bit and complimenting the group for their leadership, he said, "You are such an important and wonderful group." And then he expressed a reminder to them that they already knew. He says, "You're a great, important group of people, but the most important people in the Amway business today are the newer people. The people who are just getting started, the people who are making the early steps in their journey. That is the group of people that are most important to Amway, and it's up to us to work together in a spirit of partnership to make sure that they have the best opportunity to achieve their goals and achieve their dreams." And that too is still true today, and that is why it is so important that you are here and that you know that that commitment remains to you and to your future and to your success. There's a couple other things I want you to know about the Amway business and what has been accomplished over the years. And the next thing is that there are no shortcuts to being successful in this business. There's no games that can be played to be more successful more quickly than somebody else. Certainly not in a way that would sustain that success for any period of time. There's no shortcuts in the Amway business. I remember discussions I've had with leaders over the years that would say, "This is a simple business." It's not easy, but it's simple. And the simplicity means that it's easy for people to do things the right way so they don't have to try and find a shortcut because they don't exist. It's important that the training that you receive and the stories that you hear from the leaders are followed. Because those are the tried and true methods of being successful. Now, of course, things get updated over the years, things get improved, the business moves forward. But I think it's important for you to know that there are no shortcuts to success, that the people who are successful today, who are sitting over here today, did the same things they're asking you to do as you move forward to achieve your success. We are all in this business together. The other thing I want to share with you, or another thing I want to share, is that there's no special deals. From the very beginning of the Amway business, there were no special deals for anyone. Everybody started the exact same way. All the leaders that we celebrate today started the exact same way that you started. They didn't get a special deal. They didn't have an advantage. They bought a kit, they signed up, and they went to work. In the early days of the Amway business, when the business was just getting started, many people would approach my father and Jay, and they would say, they would tell of their sales history and experience. They would talk about the things that they had done to build a sales organization and that they had achieved much success in other areas and that they might be interested in Amway. But certainly if they were going to make that decision, that Amway would have some sort of special arrangement for them. Surely you would have a special place for us where we would have an advantage over everyone else because of all of our experience. And Dad and Jay would give them the same answer every time. He said, there's no special deals in Amway. You start just like everybody else. Buy a kit, get going. It's all the same for everybody. And along those lines, while it was the same for everybody, it also meant it was available to everybody. If you were to give a special deal for one group of people, that would mean you are not giving a special deal to another group of people, and that is absolutely against everything we believe in. This business is available to all people. It always has been, and it always will be. It doesn't matter what your background is. We have people that have tremendously successful backgrounds, who've had great success in a variety of areas, and have joined the Amway business, and they didn't get any advantage. And we've had many people who did not have success in their lives, who had very difficult backgrounds and upbringings, but they were welcomed into this business with open arms, with support and love and encouragement to move forward. Again, people would go in the early days to my dad and Jay and say, when you want to start teaching people to identify those who could be more successful than others when they're talking about the business opportunity, so that people don't have to waste their time on people who may not be as successful. And Dad and Jay would reject any of that sort of discussion. because they would ask the question that could not be answered by those sorts of people. They said, who would you leave out? What's the group of people that you would leave out and not share opportunity with? And Dad and Jay were always focused from the beginning that this is an opportunity that's available to everybody, wherever you come from, whether you're sitting in this side of the auditorium or in this side of the auditorium, in the corner or in the front. It doesn't matter where you are, even if you're not in this meeting. This opportunity is for everybody. And you have seen by the leaders in this organization for 40 years how they have reached out to people from all walks of life, from all different backgrounds, to say, how can I help the opportunity be real for you too? That's why we're here celebrating. That's worthy of celebration. All right. For 40 years, we're celebrating the building up of people, the focus on individuals so that they can achieve success and have opportunity that's unlimited. They're builders. A number of years ago in our hometown in Grand Rapids, Michigan, we got involved with a building project. There was our city center was in trouble and it needed some investment, and so Amway invested with a developer to build a building that would be helpful for our community to move forward. And the project didn't go very well. In fact, the building was not built well. It was horrible. It was literally falling apart. We had to put nets around it so that bricks didn't fall on people walking by. And there was a discussion amongst our families at what to do next. The developer who we had partnered with had left town. He was from somewhere outside of our hometown. And we were kind of stuck with this building. Well, people had done some research on our options, and they said, well, you could rebuild it and it would cost this much. Or you could just tear it down and get the insurance money back and cut your losses. And the people who were making the presentation recommended that we tear it down, get the insurance money, and cut our losses. And this was a while ago when those of us in the second generation were a bit younger. And we thought that would be a great idea. In fact, we thought in the process of taking this building down, we could make a movie about it. We could bring in Hollywood. It would be a big action movie, and we could have explosives and fire, and we could turn it into a big party. And as we kind of were joking about these sorts of things, my father and Jay got very quiet. And my father looked over at Jay and said, Jay, what do you think? And Jay was just quietly shaking his head. He said, no, we're not going to do that. He said, we're builders. We don't blow things up or tear things down. We build things up in Amway, and that's what we're going to do. Builders, building people That's what's happened for 40 years in this organization. That's what we celebrate tonight. And if I could leave with one final story. A number of years ago, early in my career, I had an opportunity to live and work in Europe. And I wasn't really thrilled about it at first, I must admit. I was very nervous, I was scared. I was young in my career and I was afraid of failing. And as it became more and more real and as it seemed like, well, maybe I should do it anyway, I had a little time to talk about it with Jay Van Andel. And I went to Jay's office and he encouraged me. And he talked about the opportunity and he talked about the business and he talked about overcoming fear. And in the middle of the conversation, I vividly remember him saying to me, Doug, I'm counting on you to do a great job over there. And the conversation continued. And I left encouraged. And I always remembered that phrase, counting on you. Well, I did go to do that assignment. My wife and I did, and we enjoyed it tremendously. It was a huge step forward in growing and developing as young people. And we came back from that event, and I thought about that meeting with Jay and how he had encouraged me. And I realized that he wasn't just talking to me. If he were here right now, he would say the same thing to each and every one of you. He would say, I'm counting on you to do a great job with this business. Right? He'd say, I'm counting on you to learn the things that are going to be important to be successful. I'm counting on you to be determined in your future. I'm counting on you to be focused and to set your goals before you. I'm counting on you to be persistent when challenges come your way and when you want to give up. I'm counting on you. And he would especially say to the leaders here, I'm counting on you to keep the dream alive like you have done for 40 years. Counting on you to stay true to the values and the principles of this Amway business. Counting on you to be the real, live leadership examples that others can follow. Counting on you to make sure we put other people in positions of authority and respect, and that we dedicate ourselves to helping others as the most important people in Amway. Right? Counting on you. And I know that as we continue to work together and stay true to our principles and stay true to the foundations of this business, we'll not only celebrate 40 years, we'll celebrate the next 40 years and the next 40 years and beyond. And I know that we can do it together. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for having us. We love you. Have a great night. We'll see you later.